Hey guys, and welcome to an episode of A Healthy Dose of Fran. Today, Percy Jackson returns in a new video looking at a possible confirmation of a theory that will occur in the Trials of Apollo, the Tyrant's Tomb. Now this theory is relating to Hazel Levesque and in particular her powers. So today, I'll be looking at how Hazel may have unintentionally cursed Jason to die. Now, this may be confirmed in the Tyrant's Tomb, and when I do my review of that, I will say if that did actually happen, because if I've predicted this, I will be impressed with myself. But other than that, I'm not trying to say that Hazel did it on purpose, and that's why I specifically mentioned unintentionally, because as we know, Hazel's powers have been difficult for her. They've caused problems that she never meant to happen. It just occurs that there is often a curse that comes with the jewels that come out of the ground when she's anxious or when she's pulled up a jewel in particular. And I'll read that passage now. Hazel stretched out her arm. She didn't think about it, she just concentrated on the water and called for imperial gold. A stupid idea, the sword was much too far away, probably hundreds of feet underwater. But she felt a quick tug in her fingers, like a bite on a fishing line, and Jason's blade flew out of the water and into her hand. Here, she said, handing it over. Jason's eyes widened. How? That was like half a mile. I've been practicing, she said, though it wasn't true. She hoped that she hadn't accidentally cursed Jason's sword by summoning it, the way she cursed jewels and precious metals. Somehow, though, she thought weapons were different. After all, she'd raised a bunch of Imperial gold equipment from Glacier Bay and distributed it to the 5th cohort. That had worked out okay. She decided not to worry about it. From that passage alone, we can see that she was definitely worried that that could be a possibility, but she brushes it off with this thought that she's done it with groups of weapons previously and that hadn't caused a problem. But it got me to thinking, what if it actually did for Jason in particular? Because it was a single weapon, it was a different feeling that she had, and as we heard in that description, she knew it felt odd. She hadn't been practicing. There was no possible way that she could have pulled that from the ocean at such a far distance when she had never done it before. So, could she have possibly cursed Jason? So to look into that, I will be looking at 3 possibilities as to how this curse could have actually happened and the evidence to support it. The first possible thing is related to how this could very possibly be a slow burn curse. Now we've seen one of these slow burns before, and that is with Sammy Valdez. Now he took the precious metal that had popped up near Hazel even though he said he wouldn't. And in that case, it was in a moment of weakness of Hazel where she didn't mean for the metal to occur. So it slightly ties into what happened with Jason. Yes, in this case it was intentional, but the unintentional side is that she didn't mean to use so much power to pull it in, because she'd never done it before. So in both of these cases, there was an unintentional aspect behind it and a difference in the emotion that led to it being pulled out. But with both cases, Sammy and Jason do keep the cursed metal. And over time, in Sammy's case, while he does find happiness, he never saw Hazel again. That was his curse of the what if. For Jason, it was a curse of the mind. It was leading to him feeling displaced and anxious and worried because he was trying to do everything at once, and in the end it led to his death because he wasn't prepared. So in both cases, this curse, while it was slow, did lead to a death. One in terms of old age and the other in terms of a lack of drive. And that aspect with Jason I'll be talking about in the second point. Now this second point with Jason is tied into the change that I found in his personality after this moment with Hazel. Throughout the rest of the House of Hades and the Blood of Olympus and then the Burning Maze, we see a big change in Jason's personality, or at least I felt that there was definitely one there. For me, Jason seems to be almost the odd one out in the group. He never seemed to have much of a drive to do what he was doing in the Heroes of Olympus. He was just kind of there almost out of a sense of duty. He had no real reason to be doing what he did, except that's what heroes do, and that's never been a good enough reason for me. I felt like after this moment with possibly receiving this cursed blade, I began to realise it, and this sense of drive that he had was no longer there. He acts unconnected to the world, and we even hear him say such a thing in, I think it's the Blood of Olympus, that he belongs to neither camp. He's like Nico in a way. But Nico has found a way to deal with that. But Jason hasn't. Now he tried to deal with this by finding a way to make sure every god and deity throughout the Greek and Roman world was remembered. But even when we see that in the Burning Maze, he doesn't really have enough drive to do it. Yes, he's been making plans, but he hasn't done anything with those plans. And that's why I think the curse, in a way, is what was leading that to happen. His drive for life was gone. I know that is a sad thought to think of when it comes to Jason, but a curse like that would make sense because it's similar to what happened to Sammy. Yes, Sammy had a life and he had something to live for, but he still felt guilt over Hazel. He still was connected to Hazel and he missed her. And when he finally let that part of him go, he passed on. Jason had a similar thing here. He had nothing to hold on to, so he was able to pass on. It was like he knew that he didn't have anything to live for. He had nothing to fight for. And so the curse finally took hold and led to his death. The third and final point is actually one that a friend of mine came up with. So Jacob, thank you so much for this idea. I thought it was fantastic. And this idea is that Jason, after receiving the cursed blade, does actually spend a lot of time surrounded by death. Now in the House of Hades, everyone enjoyed. Jason spends a lot of time with Nico, who is basically the embodiment of death. And he also spends more time with Hazel. Then in the Burning Maze, he spends a lot of time by himself. It's almost kind of like going through the stages of grief. There is the denial, there is the anger, there is the bargaining, and maybe even the spending of time and the defending of Nico that went on at that point was the blade and the curse's way of helping Jason go through these stages of grief. And then at the end in the Burning Maze, with everything that we see him doing, and even in his last moments, he is resigned to his death. He is accepting of this fact. Jason was surrounded by this idea and symbolism of death after the cursed blade came back to his hands, up until the very moment when he passed on himself. Now I know this episode was possibly a very emotional one, and I definitely feel that way. While Jason may not have been my own favourite character, his death was a big impact on the Percy Jackson fandom. And this idea of there could have possibly been a reason that led up to it, and I'm not trying to put the blame on Hazel here. We all know that her powers often had consequences, but in this case we weren't to know the consequence because we don't really think about it in that sense. So when I came onto this theory, I was upset because I knew that there was the possibility that Hazel, especially in the Tyrant's Tomb, may come to that conclusion herself and begin to blame herself for Jason's death. So that's why I wanted to put this theory out here for when the book comes out, which I am so excited for, by the way, because we are going back to Camp Jupiter with Frank, Hazel and Raina. I wanted to make sure this theory was out here to make sure that people are aware that if this cursed blade thing is true, it is 100% not Hazel's fault. But I definitely think it is possible that the cursed blade may have had an influence over the lead up to his death. Unfortunately, Hazel was just the instigator. But what do you guys think? Do you think it is possible that Hazel may have unintentionally cursed Jason's blade, which led to his death, or do you think this theory is absolute nonsense? Whatever the case, let me know it in the comment section down below. In general, guys, I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. If you go to the description box down below, you'll firstly find the link to go and buy the Tyrant's Tomb, which will be out by the time this video is available, and I can't wait to read it. You'll also find the links to my Instagram, Twitter, and merchandise store, where you can get such things as this fantastic Percy Jackson writer merchandise here, which says, "Look, I never wanted to be a writer." You can get that on t-shirts, books, mugs, whatever you like, as well as a bunch of other different merchandise, so go check that out down there, as well as the link to my Patreon, where on Patreon there are now 5 tiers of access available, including such things as early access, poll involvement, behind the scenes footage, and a personalised video message from yours truly. So go check that out if you can support me. But if not, don't worry, you guys can still subscribe to me here on YouTube by going and clicking the button down below, or clicking the one popping up here on screen. If you want to check out any of my previous Percy Jackson videos, the playlist will be popping up here, and then something else for you beautiful people will be popping up here. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.